Okay, guys, so I'm going to teach tonight on um, an ideal work schedule, and I'm just going to kind of pull from my history of when I was a brand new consultant and how I was able to manage a full-time job, two babies, starting a business that I knew nothing about, um, and learning about a new business I knew nothing about, and all the things that come with it. And hopefully it will help you to kind of set your day up and set your week up. So when I came into Mary Kay, I did not possess any of the skills that I needed to be where I am today. Um I couldn't have got here without personal growth, professional growth, spiritual growth. I worked really, really hard on on me. I worked hard on learning this business, um, and the cards were stacked against me because um, that I there were things that I had to overcome as far as shy, being insecure. Um, I was unorganized, but I was organized to a degree. So, everybody's organizational skills kind of look different. And so, like, I had learned how to organize my day in the mortgage business. And so I was able to, take a loan and process that loan and take it to closing quicker than most processors. I could close more loans than anybody. And so when I say I wasn't organized, to the naked eye, I looked like a hot mess. My desk was a hot mess. My office was a hot mess, but I knew where everything was. And I know I've heard people say that that's a sign of a quick mind and an intelligent person. I can't say I'm the smartest in the room, but I was a hard worker and I would get stuff done and I could handle a lot on my plate. And so I took a lot of those same skills and I brought them into my Mary Kay business. In fact, when I've been in Mary Kay, I think just, oh gosh, um, right at a year, my director flew in from San Antonio to work with me, and my recruiter was her cousin. And we had some guests here. We were in the basement, and we had some guests here, and it was before my studio was this nice. And so, um, and my recruiter was just dogging me about how unorganized I was, and she was trying to organize me and just bashing me. And my director said, um, while you're busy over there organizing, she's in her red jacket and she's about to go into DIQ to be a sales director. And so that made me feel so good because that is what I had kind of realized was it's not about how clean your office is. It's not about if, how organized your shelves are. It's about getting in the field, um, putting the product on the face, selling the product. You can clean your office later. And in fact, every offspring that I've ever had, and there's been a lot of them, uh, before they would finish DIQ qualifications, become a sales director, I would say, send me a picture of your office. And I needed to make sure that it looked like a hurricane came through because then I knew that you could handle 30 team members, 50, 80, 200. Because a person who is so busy trying to organize and check off every box and keep everything lined up, you can't handle a lot. And so you got to be shooting from the hip. You got to be just checking off I mean, it's okay to check off the boxes, but make sure you're checking off the right boxes. Make sure you're checking off those IPAs, those income producing activities. That is the most important thing. I could care less what your office looks like. But what I care about is, were you in the field? Income producing activities. Did you book appointments? That's an income producing activity. Did you hold an appointment? Did you have reorders this week? Did you follow up on your new faces last week? Did you follow up on your potential prospects? Those are all income producing activities. And ultimately, that is what makes you money. Not having, the clean office, your date book color coded. Oh goodness, I have sat in a lot of trainings where, the director's up there and she's shows her beautifully color coded um date book, and I'm like, please, I hope my consultants are not listening to this, um, because it can bog you down. Just, you guys, I take a sticky every night. I take a sticky and I write out what I have to do. It's a lime green. I get the lime green ones and I put it on the front of my notebook. And that is check it off, check it off, check it off. I used to have a notebook that would have pages when we were super busy, bigger than we are now. I would have to have a notebook, and each page represented a day. And right now, I don't. I just have the big page size stickies. It goes on the front of my notebook that has my pockets. That it's like a day planner, and it has a pocket, and I put my sales tickets of the sales of the ones I have to, deliver this week or follow up or whatever process, collect the money on, keep it in that pocket on the front is what I have to do daily. Just check it off. And like I said, I get the big notebook size stickies, and I love those because they stick right to the thing, to my cover, the front cover of my day planner, and then I check it off and then move on. If I have ran in someplace in a doctor's office and I don't have my day planner with me, and I'm afraid, excuse me, that I'm going to forget something, I go into my notes and I just quickly jot down like Monday, this, and this. And so when I get back in the car, I'll write it on my yellow lime green sticky. And so that is my process. It's very, very simple. It's very duplicatable. And that's one thing when you are becoming a sales director and you are building this team of people who see you already as their leader. It's so important that what you do is duplicatable. Okay, you literally have to teach from their personality. And I talked a little bit about that last week, how sometimes directors get up on stage at seminar and they're up there because of their success during that year, but they may not always be teaching from their strength zone. And so sometimes you just have to go, I don't know that she actually put this into play. And so, so make sure that when you're teaching, your potential team members, if you do want to become a sales director, that you've got your systems so simple. And that's what I hope that I have taught you guys, is very simple systems. Okay. So let me get back to my notes here. I may need my glasses. So with my old job, like I said, my desk was a mess. People would walk in and go, "Oh my gosh," and just turn around. Um, but I would always outperform every loan processor in our office and in our company. I was the number one processor. I could process more loans faster and with less error. I mean, literally. And it's because I had a system. Okay. I had my own system. And so just because someone is teaching you their system doesn't mean it's the system for you. Okay. And so I created my own system with my Mary Kay business, just like I did in the mortgage business. And so I had a day for booking. I had a couple of days for booking. I had a day booking and a night booking. I had my days that I would follow up. And remember, in the beginning, the first 6 months, I had a full time job, and I had my days that I would hold my appointments. So in the very beginning, I worked on Tuesday nights. And so part of the reason that I really needed to be so structured with my business in the very beginning was the fact that I did work a full time job. And I had to make sure that Andy was okay with this day that I was leaving him home with the boys, the babies. Remember, they were 6 months old and 2.5. And so he would be in charge of feeding them. And so we sat down. I'll tell you, in the beginning, I was a hot mess. He'd come home and I'd be dressed and he would be like, "Oh, I didn't know you had an appointment." So we literally we had to meld our calendars together. And we had never done that before because we both worked at the same time and we were home. But now I was working all day And then I had, come home. He was working all day, and then I was leaving to go do an appointment. And so we narrowed it down to uh, one appointment every Tuesday night. But I did go to my meetings on Monday nights. We had Monday night meetings. That's for those of you who are new and you don't remember this. You used to go to your weekly Mary Kay meetings, and you would take a guest, and it was another earn while you learn opportunity. And so I was earning money on Mondays, and I was earning money on Tuesdays. And so Andy had to be home. He knew Monday, Tuesdays, he would feed the boys, take care of the boys, put them to bed. We were a team. And so I definitely had those days plugged in. And then I had the delivery days. What day was I going to deliver? Let me be very honest with you. Um, I don't remember a lot about what my delivery days looked like when I had a full time job. Probably because the people that I sold to were either at the daycare, um, or I don't even know, they were not reordering yet. So my reorder business really kind of kicked in May of that year. I started in January. My reorder business kicked in May, and I was home June 1st. And so there was only like a few days where I had to maybe make some deliveries on a Saturday. But I always had product there. So I didn't have to go back and retrace my steps to deliver when I'd already been at their appointment. Does that make sense? And so I definitely knew the value of having inventory on hand. Okay. Working a full-time job, having the babies. Oh, and by then I was still playing softball too. And it wasn't until the next, that full year came through, and I knew I wanted to be a sales director, that I had to give up my my love of softball. And then that's when I picked up tennis in the mornings because I was home, and I could go play tennis, and the boys were doing a mom's day out maybe 1 or 2 days a week. So I could make, some morning appointments. And then I was becoming a sales director, and I was turning um, you know, growing my business. And so in qualifications, I definitely needed more than 1 to 2 appointments a week to get to what I needed to do. So I would have a night appointment, and then I would have maybe a daytime facial, and I could rotate it like that. So that is the uniqueness of this business, is you can look at your calendar and you can say, okay, um, you know, I can work the mornings on this day, and I can work nights on this day. And then, the boys and I would make deliveries during the mornings because I was home, and we would go to, and if we made deliveries, if we had a lot of deliveries, I would reward them by going to Chick fil A. Well, that paid off because I was always dressed, like $1 million. That's how they taught you back then. You always look like you're looking like $1 million. And I would go into Chick fil A, and the boys would get to play as a reward because we were making deliveries. And if you look back on some of my very, very old videos that I trained on, that is how I taught my boys to have really amazing people skills, because they would get out of the car, and I would let them run up to the door and look my customer in the eye, right eye to their right eye, and say, "Here, Mrs. So and so, thank you." My mom said, "Thank you for your business. Have a great day." And they would run back to the car, and so they did that for so long. And even, if you look back and I talk about when I would meet a prospect, I would always meet them at Chick-fil-A. I was meeting a lot of moms, and they would see my at the Chick-fil-A, at the playground, like the outdoor playground. I was meeting a lot of moms. Oh, and so, yeah, so sorry. And so I would meet them to talk about the business, because if they wanted to, possibly learn more, I would always meet at Chick-fil-A. My kids would play, their kids would play. And if my kids had to go to the bathroom, I say my kids, it was Ryan and Riley. This was before Hudson came along and the girls. And so they knew not to interrupt me, because I was talking to somebody, another mom. And if you've got a kid going, "Mommy, mommy, mommy," you lose your train of thought. You guys know, you're all moms. And so my boys knew to come up and put their hand on my shoulder, as long as they could reach it. Unless if I was standing, they would just put their hand on my thigh, and I would put my hand on their hand, and I would wait and I would hold it. And that was a message to them that, hey, mommy knows you're here. And as soon as I get finished with this sentence, I will address you. Okay. And so they didn't have to go, mommy, mommy. They just stood there. It blew everybody's mind, that my kids were so well behaved. And I would say they're Mary Kay kids. They know that they go to work with me, and they know that because of my Mary Kay business, I get to be with them during the day. We get to do fun things like come to Chick-fil-A, and you know, and so those are things, those are skills that I learned by going to my trainings and working on me, working on organization, working on discipline, all those things I needed to be able to have to become the sales director that I am today. Now, I always would, let me see how I did the top. I would always have leads. So I would always have leads to call. So my booking time, like when I did have a full time job, I remember days where I would eat my lunch really, really quickly. I knew I would have an hour for lunch, and I knew that I could eat in 8 minutes, run out to my car. It would be really quiet. I wouldn't have anybody coming into my office. I didn't want anybody to know. In the very beginning, I didn't want anybody to know how serious I was with my Mary Kay business. In fact, they didn't really even know that I had a Mary Kay business because the girl that I had signed up under had left the mortgage business to do Mary Kay full time, and she sold to everybody I knew. And so there was just really no need to even let people know that I sold Mary Kay. And so I would go out to my car, my minivan, had a minivan, and I would book for 52 minutes. That was my daytime booking, because there are people that you need to book during the day, and there are people that you need to book at night. And you will know who they are. You will know if your customer has a full time job. You will know if your customer is a stay-at-home mom. You will know that, oh, my customer has a 2-year old that naps at 11. Okay. So you kind of know, you start to kind of analyze, when is she going to pick up the phone? Okay. Because back then we didn't have text messages and Facebook. And honestly, I like still like calling. I like talking to my customers sometimes. And so I know we text now, but knowing what her prime time that she's more likely to respond, that's where you're going to have to know, these are my nighttime bookings, these are my daytime bookings. And so I had all of that organized. It was keeping it simple. Um, um, and I knew that there were 4 things that I needed to do always: book, coach, sell, recruit. Book, coach, sell, recruit. It's that simple. Book the appointment, coach the class, sell the product, and share the opportunity. It's that simple. That's all you have to do. We complicate it. We really do. We keep going to all these different trainings. And I talked about this last week too. And we think, oh, they've got a better idea than I have. No, we all have the same idea. We all sell the same product. No one's at a better advantage. The the only thing is that side you just got off, you just veered off on a side road because somebody standing up that had the platform to teach you at a conference just gave you an idea that you already mastered that. So leave it alone, stick to your plan, stay on your lane, and finish your job, you know, and don't get side railed. Keep your business simple. Once you master book, coach, sell, recruit, you don't, I mean, yes, you go to the events to get motivated, to be around your sister consultants, but if you're ever sitting in a class and you hear someone start talking about selling and you know that you're a master seller, close your ears. If you're great at recruiting and they're talking recruiting, you're like, well, what I'm doing, it's working. Close your ears. And so I'm going to keep saying that, because I'm very passionate about that. Stay in your lane. Do not veer off if you've already mastered that skill. Okay. So if all you have is booking, so when you block out your time, uh, let's say you have, so this was something that always worked for me. back then we didn't have timers on our phone. We literally had little timers that we would set. And I needed to book for an hour. I'm like, okay, I need this many appointments and I've got 1 hour. Just like I was telling you, I had 52 minutes for lunch. And I would book and the timer would go off and I would be done. And the guilt was gone. Okay. So when we get guilty about our business, it's because we're not present to the moment. We were not present to that moment. We didn't put forth the effort that we needed to put forth, um, to book that week, or we skipped booking that week, or we skipped follow up. I followed up with my customers, followed up with my prospect. You know, the fortune is in the follow up. It really is. And there's so few people that do it, because let's say you sent someone a video to watch about the opportunity and you're thinking, well, she didn't text me back to say she liked it, so I guess she didn't want to do it. No, you have to follow up. The fortune is in the follow up. And so you have to schedule that in your week, and you have to know who you've got to follow up on. You got to go back. You've got to have your systems. Like, oh, that's why I love my little day planner that has the pockets. I know that those are my new customers that have new product that they are just using. And I know that I've got to go through and follow up with them. Okay. All right. So block out your time and set your timer on your phone. If all you have is 30 minutes, 30 minutes. If all you have is that time to work, believe it or not, that is very powerful. When you have your feet nailed to the ground, nailed to the floor, your butt is in your office chair, and you have told yourself, you've been a really good boss to yourself, and you said you can't get up until you get 30 minutes or an hour of booking in. Okay. That's you being a really, really great boss. Okay. And so you are going to get it done in that time slot until that timer goes off. And you know what? When that timer goes off, you really feel victorious. You really, really do. It's amazing. And so try that. If you've never tried that, it is very empowering. I promise you. And let me know what you think. Okay. All right. So, um, moving on, let me stick with my notes here, and I can't really read them because I was trying to stay away from my glasses today. Because these are my Dollar Tree glasses, and they're just not. Look, there we go again. I got two pair on. We did that before we started. Okay. Um, so you want to find a way to make this happen, okay? And so that comes from the discipline and your training kicking in of you've got to want this. You've got to want this. Um, you've got to want this so bad that you're going to fix all of your bad habits, okay? You're going to overcome all of your bad habits. Um, okay, what am I trying to say here? Uh, doing training. Oh, so I want to tell you a quick little story here. So, I had my systems, and the training what that I would do would always be like if Andy was home, that was my ideal time to do training with consultants. And it was always conference calls. Of course, we didn't have anything like this, didn't have Facebook. And I remember one time a director asked me if I would do her morning training for her group. We have little fruit flies in here because Hudson lives in the basement now. He's my messiest child, and I have fruit flies everywhere. Um, and so, anyway, a director friend of mine asked me if I would do her morning training, and I'm like, oh gosh, morning, you know, my kids are okay. I said, and it was early morning, and I said, okay, um, well, I had one, I had to drop, it was dropping, I don't remember what I would pick them up at their mom's day out. I think it was the girls. Yeah, I think it was the girls. I would pick them up at their mom's day out and they would fall asleep. Oh, no, no. I would drop the boys off at school and come home, and the girls would fall asleep. The boys were so easy to a degree. The girls were rowdy, and they're just kind of their schedule was not as as easy as the boys. Okay, and so I'm thinking, how am I going to do this 9 a.m. training? And I have the girls running around, because the minute I get them out of the car seats, they're like out of control, right? But they would always fall asleep from the time I dropped the boys off to the time I got home. I remember what it was. This was the day that they didn't go to Mom's Day Out. It was a Friday morning. They would always go to Mom's Day Out Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. It was a Thursday or Friday morning. And I said, okay, I'm going to drive around the neighborhood until my girls, I'm going to come back from school, drive around the neighborhood until my girls fall asleep. And then I'm going to sit in my car with the car running in my driveway. And I'm going to do this conference call for this director. It's actually a national sales director. So I was a little nervous about it that a national sales director had asked me to train her people. And so I was, and sure enough, I drive into my driveway and they wake up. And I'm like, oh. So then I just keep going around the neighborhood until they fell back asleep again. And then I eased into my driveway and they were asleep. So then I start talking and I start to see them kind of get restless. So then I kind of open my door and I'm still on the phone doing the training. And the next thing I know is I've got my papers on my hood. I can see through my windshield and I am I'm seeing that they are awake. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I am so stressed out. But I've got my papers, my training on my dash, got my phone, and I can see my girls, and they're fine. And I'm like, oh gosh. So you just do what you got to do. And even when the boys were little, whenever I would have to do a marketing interview during the morning if Andy was at work and I had to keep the boys quiet. So one time I remember being in DIQ and I was selling, I was having a lot of appointments and my orders were coming in faster than I could unload them. And or I would unload them and then I would just store the peanuts in the box in the spare bedroom down here. And I remember I had to do an interview and it took me 45 minutes to do this interview. And the boys were really quiet and they were down here. I had them playing in the spare bedroom so they wouldn't get in any trouble. And they were really quiet. And I got off the interview and I went into the bedroom and every box that had I had the whole room was like this deep in peanuts. And they were just like it was snowing. It's like, oh gosh. So these are like my DIQ stories. And one time, I know you may not remember this, but when you had the phone on the wall, this was in the very early stages, had the phone on the wall. This is before cell phones really were getting big, and had the phone on the wall. And I was on the phone doing with a new consultant. So she was asking questions, and my boys had dumped cereal on top of the table. They were on top of the table, jumping up and down on the cereal. Then they started running, and every time they would run past me, I would pinch them. Like I would grab them and pinch them, and I was still trying to, like, stop. And those are just paying my dues. I was paying my dues. But I look back now and I'm like, oh my gosh, my boys are 26 and my older boys are 26, 24, and Hudson's 18 and the girls are 14. And we made it through. And I know I remind you guys often, if you ever go back and look at any of my videos, like my Sunday night Zoom videos, and when I used to do them in my office, and I go back and look at them sometimes. If you see me cut my eyes to the right, you can guarantee that Riley has come in and mooned me. And then often, if you go back and look at some of the old ones, we used to do a drawing every Sunday, and Hudson would run down and he would do the drawing. And so a lot of times you would see him in the back behind me with no shirt on, with his blanket. And I was looking at a video the other day and I saw that. I'm like, oh, I forgot about the drawing that I used to do. And so my point today from all the memories that I was bringing up was you get to create your ideal work week, but you need to make sure that those key things are in there and that you're doing them each week because the results will come from the activity. If there's no activity, there's no results. And it's just super simple. Book, coach, sell, recruit, book, coach, sell, recruit. That's all we do. And and then the rest is history, and everything else will happen organically. And before you know it, you'll have an amazing business, like I have 23 years later, and it's a well-oiled machine that can pay you really, really great money. So, all right, so I'm going to stop the recording and let you guys ask me any questions or comment and chime in on any of the things that I talked about. Hang on just a